The most bullish billionaire in Bitcoin just had a historic earnings call, something that we've never seen before. But there's something that not everybody is talking about, something that he hinted at but didn't say outright. So we're going to dive into all of this and more, and what the MSTR earnings means for the future of finance and Bitcoin treasury companies. But first, let's dive in to what Michael Saylor said here about the potential of the MSTR share price that I thought was very, very interesting.
So you can see at 30% leverage, we would have 555,000 Satoshis per share. The green bars you see, that is the work that the treasury operation is doing. When people wonder what's the value added of a Bitcoin treasury company, it's the ability to create the green bar over the orange bar. And that's a 2.8 BTC factor. That means that, what does it mean? It means in essence, you would think that the floor for MNAV for a company that's got this sort of performance is 2.8, right?
So with 30% leverage, that he essentially said like, hey, you know what? We think that we could get to this 30% leverage fairly easily and fairly quickly. Well, that means that the floor would be a 2.8 MNAV. Now, what would that mean? That would mean an implied share price of MSTR of 700. Now, what are we at right now for the MSTR share price? We're about nearly half of that, with $376.22 at opening. But it's interesting because everybody was talking about this slide right here, which I think a lot of people are undermining or not really taking too much notice of, is benchmarking the S&P versus strategy. Earnings wise, it was 13th out of every single company in the S&P 500. Its market cap is 96. So you already see the giant, let's call it, gap there. And then their PE multiple was at 4.7. So literally all of the, let's call it, value investing metrics that have been essentially dead for the past decade are showing that MSTR is the most undervalued stock in the S&P 500, or of the top 500 companies in the world. Now, granted, MSTR isn't in that S&P 500 just yet, and we're going to get into all of these different factors here in a little bit, but this essentially is showing that MSTR's price is set to absolutely explode and rip, and part of that will be just obtaining more debt to buy more Bitcoin. Now, he also said that they could buy a significant portion of that this morning. Now, let's get into this clip that we heard from Michael Saylor.
Too much Bitcoin for you to own? Like if you could own all of it, would you?
I don't think we'll get all of it. I don't think in the range of 3 to 5 or 3 to 7% is too much. BlackRock has got more than
I just wonder.
So he said 3 to 5 to 3 to 7%. It's absolutely astronomical. They even said that they posted a record Q2025 share guidance, and something that I think is being really undermined here, let's call it, as the amount that strategy beat these numbers is insane. Look at this. They beat expectations by 46,671%. Literally the biggest earnings beat in history of any single company. I mean, it's absolutely astronomical. Of course, it's because of the FASB regulations. And the FASB regulations, for those who don't know, is essentially just the accounting regulations for holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet, or any asset for that matter. So because Bitcoin's price has appreciated drastically, you're seeing a massive amount of increase on their earnings. Now, there's a caveat. This did change in January, and we saw a little bit of a negative dip here from January through Q1, and that's why we didn't see this historic run-up just yet. But now that we have, it's going to be turning a ton of more heads. You can't tell me that a stock beating earnings per share by 46,000% 25% is not going to turn just some regular analyst's head. In fact, I'm sure everybody is now essentially looking at Bitcoin. And they said that there's 160 different analysts now tracking MSTR. And because they're tracking MSTR, they need to in turn track Bitcoin and look at Bitcoin's potential price by end of the year. And they're all looking at it at 165,000, which, as Samson Mao said in the earnings call, I think is very conservative and bearish. So there is some unique aspects of what Saylor dove into and some of the markets that he is trying to, let's call it, disrupt here. But the 14 billion of operating income, the net income, they essentially have literally a Bitcoin highlights section, which I thought is incredible here. They've got 25% Bitcoin yield year to date, and they're operating and obtaining a bunch more date here, or a bunch more here. And this, as my friend Mitchell Hoddle is saying, is not priced in. There's a future 30 trillion in medium duration corporate credit that they are going to be going after in order to be obtaining more Bitcoin. And in fact, Saylor lined out the 3 different products that they have rolled out within the past 12 months as to what markets that they are planning on disrupting with that. And we're going to get into that here in a little bit. So be sure you're sticking around to the end of this video for all of that. But I think the future opportunity here of $30 trillion of medium duration and corporate credit is absolutely insane, because the way we're looking at Bitcoin, right? We look at assets ranked by market cap right this second. We're still a ways away from all of these corporations, right? We're still at $2.2 trillion. And if you recall back here, right, the estimated net income, granted, Strategy is not close to Google when it comes to all of this. But if you look at the market cap and the ranking of all of this and the PE ratio, it is significantly undervalued. So it should be able to, let's call it, pick up some more steam here and catch the likes of Google for that in the near future at the very least. But the Strategy's earnings call was a perfect sequel to all of this, right? They've had 114.48 million revenue beat, the EP earning per share explosion of $32.60 comparatively to losing 7 cents was the 46,471% surprise. And all of this, he detailed it in Jordan Peterson's podcast not too long ago. And he's even talked about, hey, you know what? There's over 160 corporate treasuries, now 161 public treasuries. And it seems like they keep changing the color of this every time I come to it. But there's 161 now publicly traded companies that are now putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And this number seems to be exploding every single day, right? So we're going to get into some of the other strategies that we're seeing around there. But 161, literally 21 more in the past 30 days, absolutely jumping off the charts. And we're seeing, these headlines here on just traditional financial media. Strategy beating earnings by 35,000. It makes for something that, really can't be overlooked by the general public. And I think that, we are seeing something that people really need to take into account here. And I want to go over the markets that, Michael Saylor talked about disrupting. Of course, some of these are pretty standard, and you would almost think, hey, you know what? It's a product in the financial services. Okay, of course, it will disrupt the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, commercial real estate. We've talked about how it's financializing all of finance here. But the year-to-date performance of all of these are significantly less than STRK. And the size of its market is a lot less. So it has the potential to overtake all of these different markets here for STRK. The STRF is looking at the long-term U.S. Treasury bonds. And let's face it, the bond market has been essentially dead for quite some time. And before we dive into the rest of these markets, we got to bring you back to a little fact here that we heard from Wells Fargo. Their CEO said the most unsung story of 2025 is that Bitcoin is diving into the $300 trillion bond market. And our good friend, Jamie Dimon, the snake that he is, has been saying, hey, it's going to happen. The cracks in the bond market. He even came out and said the other day, hey, I hate Bitcoin. I still do not like it, but our customers are demanding it. So we're going to give the customers what we want, what they want, excuse me. So because of all of these factors, we're seeing Jamie Dimon now bend the knee, and we saw it all along, right? You guys know I love this chart here. It says this should just be Jamie Dimon just rolling into a little bar, a little ball, sucking on his thumb, calling to mommy at this point in time, because he's just bending the knee when it comes to all of this, because we're seeing all of these guys basically capitulate to Bitcoin, including the biggest Bitcoin bear on planet Earth. And now they're even offering Bitcoin-backed bonds. And I wouldn't trust Jamie Dimon to, I wouldn't even lend him a pen at this point in time, because I'm not getting that thing back. The guy is just a crook. But the thing that we are seeing is that a lot of these lending corporations or lending companies are starting to pop up left and right. So you might ask yourself, who should I trust with all of this? The people I trust are Salt Lending. You should go to saltlending.com/greencandle. They're going to give you guys an exclusive offer here. And the reason I trust them is there's no rehypothecation, zip, zero. They've got the lowest rates that I've seen for a Bitcoin only corporation. They offer 12-month durations, and you can borrow up to 70% of LTV. And they've even got the Salt Shield. So it's a no liquidation solution. They've offered literally the biggest loans that have ever been offered by any single entity for a Bitcoin backed loan at $108 million. If a guy can trust them for $108 million, I think you guys can as well. Hey, but who knows? Maybe we got some whales listening in. I know we've got a little over 100 of you guys right here. And I'm going to give you guys some more sats. So come on in to the Green Candle live chats and join in, because I give you guys sats literally every single time you come in, courtesy of my friends over at the Bitcoin Well. So come on in to bitcoinwell.com/green candle. You'll get 500 wishing well points, and you get 500 every time you get somebody else on, as well as buying Bitcoin. So if you buy Bitcoin, you come to the Green Candle live chats, you do all this, you could get a ton of free sats just by showing up here. Boom, 606 sats straight to your dome piece. Make sure you guys are smoking that like, hitting that subscribe button, telling a friend to tell a friend, so you guys can come in and get some free sats every time we come along into the live chats here. But there's something unique that I think I didn't really think about here. When Michael Saylor was talking about the STRC, the strike, I'm not sure how he pronounced this one, to be honest. STRK was strike, STRD was stride, and STRC, I'm not even sure how he was pronouncing it. But this right here, the USD bank accounts, if you got an effective yield of 0.1 to 4% is crazy. If you guys have a bank account that's giving you guys 4%, let me know. I think that's absolutely savages here. But what I am seeing is that, hey, Michael Saylor recognizes that there's a bunch of just stagnant money out there. And some trend that we've been seeing in the EU and in the UK and all of these other places is that these places around the globe want to use your unused savings to invest in something that they see as a benefit. Now, before the United States, I don't think the United States is going to get there at some point in time. I hope not. But Michael Saylor's offering you an out here by essentially saying, hey, you know what? This is a low volatility. You don't have to worry about too much of the downside. It's comparable to the stable coin market. and these corporate commercial paper bonds, the short-term treasury bills, all of these things, they offer about 4%. You could get double that yield at a minimum, maybe even more, especially if you got a low end just USD bank account. So tapping into these giant markets like this are astronomical. And you guys know I love to show the MSTR flywheel, so I'll bring it up yet again because I think that this thing is absolutely genius. And we're starting to see this come more and more to life, right? The MSTR flywheel, the beauty, where he's still issuing debt to buy more Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price increases, their market cap increases. And I think one thing that this doesn't highlight is that not only does the market cap increase, but now their earnings per share rapidly increases as well. And so we're starting to see it all come to life where, hey, you know what? The earnings per share skyrocketing in flight. Woo! I know it's the morning time, but we can still have some afternoon delight in here. And it's absolutely taken off. And then we see the weight in the market cap increases and the weight in indices increase. You really can't put a number on, traditional finance having headlines like this. Earnings beat expectations by 35,000%. Look, there's not too many people that were aware of MSTR maybe before this time, but I think everybody's starting to pay attention when you see these things like this. Because all these analysts, they really got to keep a close eye on this. But either way, let's get back to the flywheel. They'll issue more equity to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin price will increase, market cap will increase, weight in indices increase, and thus the MSTR issues more equity to buy Bitcoin. And, this, let's call it Bitcoin, I don't know if we want to call it virus or plague, something like that, always has a negative connotation. But Metaplanet is now going to be doing the same exact thing. We're seeing it take over the Japanese market. And, these things are going to be tapping into the Japanese market here. And Mitchell Hoddle, for the man, the myth, the legend, friend of the program, he's come out and, said, hey, this Metaplanet thing is going to follow in the footsteps. They're going to get similar to Class A, which they have the STRF. So it's the ideal yield for fixed income investors who want to beat the 1.5 yield on the Japanese 10-year. And then the STRK is their Class B. So it's ideal for Japanese who want BTC upsides with lower volatility. I mean, all of these things lead the renaissance in Japan's fixed income markets. I mean, these guys are just simply just copying the playbook of MSTR. And why wouldn't you? I mean, Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, they want exposure to all of this. All of these guys want exposure to this. And then when you launch new preferred and common stock equities, well, you see the price explode and the IPOs explode. Literally the largest IPO of the year was from STRC. And what? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 of the top 8 were from MSTR alone. No other corporation has more than one here. And granted, Circle had one before, and they were a digital assets company, or at least that's how Saylor described them as, so that's how I'll do it. But, I mean, these things are absolutely astronomical, and seeing the explosion of all of these take off, well, you have to ask yourself, why is the amount of exposure like it is? And why does Saylor come out and say these things like, hey, you know what? MSTR's MNAV should be a floor of 2.8, which means that MSTR's share price should basically be double than what it is right now. And this is the CEO of this company saying all this. And we've seen MSTR, if we pull it up here, the share price, it's been, doing pretty well year to date. But over the past month, we've just had 0.75. It's been relatively flat. Year to date, though, up 30% just about. And in the past year, forget about it, up 154%. So when we see MSTR absolutely exploding like this already, and Saylor saying, hey, you know what? We're not even done yet. We should have a minimum price of $700 a share. Well, it makes you think that's $700 a share with Bitcoin basically going flat at this point. He said Bitcoin could essentially be just dead flat right now, and it would still have the MNAV of 2.8% at 700. Or not 2.8%, at the MNAV of 2.8, excuse me. And so if Bitcoin's price didn't move and didn't have the upside that many of us know here, and in fact, the analysts that are analyzing MSTR have seen, well, the analysts are saying, hey, at a minimum, it should be 1.6 or 0.16 mil, as Samson Mao puts it. Very bearish, if you ask me. And a lot of the people that are following along the Bitcoin price action here. And we got a little bit of a dip coming. So I just gave you guys some more sats here today for coming to this live stream. But I think the unique aspect is just how much attention that this is going to start to take on. I mean, you look at something like this, traditional finance, you have to see like that they're just going to absolutely just, see this and have to take note. There's zero doubt in my mind that this is just the start of something. And I know we got some few people in the chat. What's up, Knox Bill? Salt Life. Amen to that. We've got Crypto Badga. Skip all memberships, just stack sats. Amen to that. But Bitcoin is financializing traditional finance, or is going to take over the traditional financial world. And it's just a matter of time before we start to see this absolutely take off. I mean, the amount of Bitcoin treasury companies that are coming online right now is something that, they keep changing the color on this. I literally come to this website every single day. I mean, if you look at the live stream I did yesterday, I came to this and it was less, and it was this blue, I believe. So the amount of Bitcoin, we're almost going to get a full Satoshi for all the publicly traded companies to now hold Bitcoin to get to that 1 million. But as Saylor said, the 3 to 7% of the total supply is nothing that is out of range for MSTR. And the reason being is BlackRock has more at this point. So who would you rather have holding this much amount of Bitcoin? Would you rather have it as Michael Saylor and MSTR, or as Uncle Larry and BlackRock? I know my answer, but I hope you guys know yours. I appreciate you guys all coming out to this great live stream. Make sure you guys are smoking that like Cheech and Chong, and hitting that subscribe button so we can get more people liven up the chat here when I come in and rip on all this bullish news. Thank you guys all for coming out, and I will catch you guys all at the next one.